Hello, and welcome to Healing Tips from the Heart, Intuition with Helpers, Healers, and Guides. I am your host, Dr. Lori Hops, licensed psychologist, writer, and artist. I've explored mind, body, and spirit related to intuition, or your personal guidance system, since early childhood. Meet my guests who have learned from their personal and professional lives to explore vast realms of knowing, synchronicities, and overcoming challenges. Their stories may inspire you with tools to enhance your daily living and relationships. Hello, everyone, and welcome my special guest for today, Tayria Ward. Tayria lives in Asheville, North Carolina. She's a psychologist in private practice, offering dream analysis and spiritual guidance from clients all over the world. She has worked with her own and other people's dreams for more than 50 years, and for the past 30 years has been an avid student of Indigenous ways of knowing and being. She also conducts a monthly global community dream symposium that she holds online with people from all over the world who come to share their dreams and listen to the collective dreaming mind, which often shows similar symbols and messages from month to month, which is just fascinating, that we'll be talking about. She also conducts small private dream groups and teaches all around the world with lectures and interviews. And she also offers oracle readings, which is just fascinating. So welcome, welcome. How are you today?
I am well, Lori. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's so lovely to be with you, and I just ask good blessings on all your audience as we embark on this fun conversation. So it's an honor to be with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I'd like the audience to know that I haven't yet had the pleasure to meet you in person. Maybe one day that will happen.
I'd love that.
Yeah, but I came across you from a summit that we were in together, and I was so intrigued by this dream symposium. And so I decided to sit in on your symposium the last 2 months, which is so generous. You offer it to the community and really go for about 2 hours. It's really, and with the recordings, it's just such a generous gift that you give. And I was so fascinated by the dreams, by the interpretations, by the sense of continuity through them. And I thought, oh, I would love to interview you for this podcast.
Aw, thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm wondering about the origin of this work that you're doing, and maybe from the Dream Symposium, but maybe also what puts you on this path? Because so many people get mystified, distracted, consumed by the physical world in front of us.
Mhm.
And if there's an older tradition, a deep tradition of dream, immersion, understanding, respect, etc. But I'm curious about what put you on that path, if you don't mind sharing.
Oh, I don't. I'm always pleased to share. It's just such a vibrant, important story for me, so I'm happy to share it. Now, I'll start where you suggested I start with the Dream Symposium. And
Okay.
just tell you, I'll probably talk more about it later, but I did a lot of work. My doctoral dissertation was reawakening indigenous sensibilities in the Western psyche. So it was all about work with the indigenous and reawakening the indigenous mind that we all have. That has been really altered in the last few centuries of rationalism and the industrial world and the machine cosmology and all that. So the indigenous mind is still available to us if we reawaken it. And so I did a lot of work with indigenous elders and shamans and so forth during those years. And I always was really attracted to the idea that the indigenous people wake up in the morning. Usually they'd start their day about 4 in the morning, get the whole village together and listen to the dreams of the community. And from the dreams, they know it's like reading the morning newspaper. It's like, this is what's really going on. This is what the guides, our higher selves, the matrix of life wants us to hear today. And they would get the most practical things from, when to plant, when to hunt, when danger's coming, how to conduct the affairs of the community, as well as very cosmological information about what to, like open themselves to or think about. And then they, like 4 in the morning, they get together for this gathering, and sometimes they go to bed, back to bed, and sleep for another couple hours, or they wake up. And so I was sitting in my office in downtown Asheville, um, and listening to these dreams, and some of them were like, this dream is not just for me and this dreamer. This dream is for the whole world to hear. It's like a myth or a story, something that is important and timely, and it shouldn't be just for me. So what do I do with this? I wish that we could do what the indigenous people do, like tell us what is coming in these messages and the dreaming. So I was talking to my friend Jocelyn Starfeather about this. This frustration is like, should I write a book about it? What should I do? And so we came up with the idea of the Dream Symposium. It's like, well, okay, well, every month for 2 hours, we'll sit down and listen to the dreams of the community, just like the indigenous people do. So it's their tradition that we're carrying on here, and it's been so valuable. And we've done it every month since the February of 2017. So what's the math on that? 9 years or something? Anyway,
Wow, coming
it's been
up.
a
Yeah.
long time. Yeah. And it's, things don't last that long in this day and age. We're kind of flighty, but this one has stayed, and it just is a really powerful community that has built around it, and everybody's welcome and invited. That's my free gift for everybody today. So that's the origin story of the Dream Symposium. Now, the origin story of my work with dreams, I love to tell too. Um, when I was, well, first of all, as a child, I had very vivid dreams and learned early on that nobody else was interested in my dreams. It was this really vivid, interesting life. It was like I was reading a book every night of all these, stories and interesting things going on, and I'd try to talk to somebody about it, and there seemed to be very little interest in it. And I will say that to our whole community. That can be a tragedy for a child. Listen to their dreams. Ask them about their dreams. Open space if they want to talk about their dreams. This is really an important part of life, and I'll say more about that as we go. But um, so when I was, and so I learned it was just my private life. I just learned that's what it is. It's just something I carry privately. Then, when I was 24 years old, I met this woman through a friend who was a spiritual teacher. And one of the main things that she uh, asked her students to do was write down our dreams nightly. And she could, it's amazing. If you told her your dream, she could read so deep into it all. You just knew, oh my gosh, there is a whole library of wisdom in this one little dream that I had last night. And so she was the one that awakened in me. And then I was with her organization for 20 years. I was ordained, and it was a interfaith community. So we studied all the world's religions and prophets and science and all of that in this community. So, but the dreams were like something that with my husband at the time and all my friends, we talked about every day. That was just part of how we lived, is whatever was coming in our dreams. Um, and I was speaking a lot as a minister. I was speaking regularly, and my dreams were part of the texts that I used. It was part of what informed me what to talk about, and little nuggets, almost like scriptural nuggets that would come right out of my dreams. And so they've always been, a really a through line through everything in life. I'll tell you a little more as we go, but I have 50 years of dream journals. Uh,
Mm,
yeah,
wow.
50 years, and I still go back to them, and they still talk to me. I can remember vividly, as if it happened last night, dreams that I had 35 years ago that still, come up in, certain conversations or in things I'm teaching that still have, like scriptural passages do. They just have this timeless wisdom in them. So,
Wow.
and then when I resigned from this organization, it was like I was stepping away from religion finally, and
Okay.
which was, a very hard decision for me to make at the time, but it felt like I needed to grow in a different direction. So I decided to get my doctorate in depth psychology because I wanted to learn Jung and Freud's approach to the dream. I knew that, there was a lot to learn from them. And the
Hmm.
founders of depth psychology, ones would say, and also, they each had their own kind of interesting approach to the dream. Freud's was more about the personal unconscious that was being exposed and wanting some attention and healing help. He was more about the personal unconscious. Jung was about that too, but he really extended into the collective unconscious, which is what
Hmm.
we're working with in the Dream Symposium. We're looking for the collective messages for the whole community, and Jung was quite aware of the collective dreaming mind, and so he extended Freud's sort of understanding of dreams. So I got my doctorate, and then, as I mentioned, I started working with indigenous elders. I had some experiences that led me into that world, which was really, really salvational for me at a critical time in my life. My marriage ended up being a casualty of some of this, and I needed help getting through that. It was heartbreaking and devastating to me. It was like that's what made me fall into the lap of these indigenous elders. I said, I need a vision quest. I need a
Oh.
sweat lodge. And I didn't even know. It's like that came from the dreaming mind,
Hmm.
out of nowhere came, I need a sweat lodge. I didn't even know that I knew the term. And so I investigated and went to a sweat lodge. Then when I was in the sweat lodge, I heard I need a vision quest.
Hmm.
And so I asked the lady who was leading the sweat lodge, this Native American woman in San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles. In her backyard, she had this sweat lodge. She was great. So I asked her about a vision quest, and she took me on one, and those were life-changing experiences. And so then, in my studies with indigenous elders and reading and experiencing, the dreams are very central to the indigenous world. And what they introduced me to, which I'd never been quite so aware of, but it just made absolute sense to me, is the concept of the dream time.
Yeah.
And that's a dimension of this reality that we live in, that we live and move and have our being in the dreaming at all times. And our conscious waking mind has forgotten. We have to go to sleep to remember that we have this whole life, and these things that we do and learn and see, and people we know in the dream time. That is an actual dimension. It's just another dimension from this 3D world that we live in our waking consensual reality. Now, indigenous people used to know that at all times. So the Aboriginal people think the Western person has gone insane because we only dream at night.
Hmm.
Whereas they step in and out of the dreaming consciousness at all times. They'll step into this consensual 3D reality we have here, but the part of their consensual reality is that they can step into the dream time, waking and sleeping. So I learned about that dimension of ourself, our souls, our psyches um, through these studies. So the indigenous studies became uh, extremely important to me. So living in Los Angeles, I decided to, after my last daughter went off to college, I moved to the mountains of Western North Carolina and started a retreat center where I could lead vision quests. I had a
Oh.
sweat lodge there, and we worked dreams. Um, and so I would do retreats, 4-day retreats about every 3 months for all the years that I lived out there, 9 years. Then I moved into Asheville, and now I just have one-on-one clients where I work with dreams. So that's sort of my long trajectory.
Well,
But the dreams, since early life, and then certainly since I met my teacher, who has me had me writing them down and really giving them such importance. The dreams have been a through line through all of my life's choices. So um, there's my personal history with all that.
oh, thank you for sharing that rich, rich story.
Yeah,
It almost reads like a fairy tale.
thank you. Yeah.
You know, the delight, the horror, the magical encounters that lead you to the next unfolding, how you connect through community with all of it, the communities that you build. I mean, I'm just kind of like feel like I'm sitting around the campfire.
Thank you. I love that. Yeah, I think stories are so, they contain all of it, right?
Yes, I
Right.
have so many questions,
Okay.
or points of reflection, not so much questions. I guess the first thing is for me to share a little bit about my own story.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, with dreaming. So I've always been like, I didn't know that other people didn't have movie type dreams every night.
Uh-huh.
People would be like, "Oh, I had a dream." And they're like, I'm like, "Oh, what was it?" And they're like, I like opened the yogurt and then I ate it. I'm like, and then what happened? Like, where are the dragons? And oh, come on. Where's the storyline?
Uh,
Where's the multiple characters? When were you
yeah.
flying? And they're like, no, I just opened the yogurt and I ate it, but I don't re usually remember my dreams. And I'm like, oh my God, I must be some weirdo because I dream in these like epic, multi-layered, like whatever. So I just, I, similar to you, I felt cut off from
Hmm.
sharing too much about dreams, or I would share a portion sometimes. And so because it takes a special kind of grace for the listener to hold the dream,
Yeah.
because it is such an internal experience. It's so idiosyncratic. And so anyway, I started journaling too, to kind of capture what I needed as a reflection. And it was so interesting to see how um, visual moments in the dream when I wrote them when I read them back, I realized that they were puns, they were metaphors. There was all kinds of language that was
Uh-huh.
buried in the visual interactions of the dream. So, anyway, so that was kind of cool to see the depth coming through. And then similar to you, but not in such a deep way, I was aware of and studied a little bit about psychodynamic approaches to dream analysis and so on. But the thing that really opened me more was reading Seth Speaks by Jane Roberts. She had
Uh-huh.
channeled Seth Speaks in other books. And there they talked a lot about the psychic reality of dreams and other aspects of consciousness. And that really blew my mind. That was when I was in a cognitive behavioral graduate program. And so I kind of had this deep secret of, I'm reading channeled material, how to keep it quiet. So anyway, that really opened up the understanding for me that this is in many ways a more real world than the one that we call home,
Absolutely.
and had all kinds of precognitive experiences and wound up meeting people later years that I dreamt of earlier that I had no idea how that was going to all happen. And it kind of went from there. And so I'm like you, I really respect the dreaming life as
Hmm.
being potent and alive. And I have found that it does infiltrate my waking time at
That's
times, as do other aspects of reality. So, anyway, I just really appreciate you sharing this tender, private, but universal aspect of living that's so important. And I hope that your story is an inspiration for other people to feel comfortable, more comfortable maybe, and to have a place, realizing that they're not alone, and to befriend the dreams, even the scary ones or disturbing ones, they all have messages for us. It's like there's this grand writer, creative writer who's been assigned to each of us individually to drop in the perfect messages at the right time. So anyway, those are just some of my responses to your story.
Oh, I love hearing your vivid dream life. That's really such a gift, and I loved hearing you say when you write it down all of a sudden, and I want to say to people who are kind of new to this, write them down, keep a dream journal, like your own special dream journal, because the dreams know that you're respecting them when you're writing them down. And isn't it interesting that once you write them down, is there something about the action of writing it down? It starts to download. Then it's like, oh, that's why this was in the dream. Or during the day, it will start to unfold. So there is something so powerful about the taking the respect and the time with your unconscious that is speaking to you, and the collective unconscious, and the global dreaming mind is speaking to us. So taking the time to respect that and know that, it starts to unload. And even the little dreams, I opened the yogurt and I ate it, you know, a depth psychologist can go a long way with that. What is yogurt to you? Is it like mother's milk? And why was this coming to you now? Is it something that you're consuming now that is, providing some kind of nourishment that you need and that you want. So you can go a long way with even the simplest dreams, and writing them down starts to download, what that is. So it's like respecting everything from the epic dream to the one that's only 5 words that just, says it all, or it doesn't say anything you understand yet. I always talk about dreams speak their own language, and it's learning the language of the dream that's important. It's like people wake up and say, well, that's about nothing. No, it's not. It's about something. It's just a different language, and you have to learn the language, which is a symbolic language. It's speaking in the language of symbols, which sounds like, if you're listening to people speaking the Korean language, most of us don't understand a word of what they're saying, but they know what they're saying. And that's what it is about the dreams. Is you don't think you understand a word of this, but it knows what it's saying, and you just learned the language. And it's an exciting adventure, but it's always, um, as you were saying, it's always significant. It always has something for us. And Robert Johnson, who is one of my favorite authors of a Jungian nature, Robert Johnson, any book he's written, I would recommend. But he said, God would never bother you with irrelevant material. His sort of word for it was it comes from God, that sort of
Mhm.
great unconscious, or that great sort of mind. But he'd say it doesn't come to you with irrelevant material. It's relevant, it's for you and it's for now. It comes to you at this time for a purpose, um, and something that you need to know. Even like, as you were saying, the scary dreams, the
Yeah.
scary dreams are waking us up to, alerting us to, like if something's chasing us and they were terrified, if we think, what is it that's pursuing me now? Is it a consciousness that I'm scared of, that I want to run away from? And what happens if I turn around and face it? Maybe it turns into a friend, or, it's like, don't run away. Or maybe it's something that, that we are being warned about, but it's working with it that will give us that. And as Jung said, the dream is always on your side. It's not coming to frighten you, admonish you, punish you. It's always coming to give you what your best friend would give you. So yeah.
I have a question for those who are starting their journal. Have you found that it matters whether you type, vocally dictate, write on pencil and paper? Do those modalities of capturing the dream matter?
Well, I think that's for everybody to find their own way. One of Jocelyn Starfeather, who does the symposium with me, she just puts them on a audio file and
Okay.
keeps them. Now, for me, that wouldn't work. I wouldn't know where to find it. I just,
Okay.
I'm 74, she's 30 years younger or something.
Okay.
Knows how to think like that. But she can flip through her phone and find that dream she had in 2016. She can just do it. She knows
Wow.
how to do that. But for me, my preference is always to write it down. I tried typing them, and it felt like the machine was between me and my dreaming mind. Somehow the machine,
Okay.
but when I write it down with a pen, then there's something about it that feels like I'm grounding it. It feels more grounded. And
Have
then,
you ever created art from your dreams?
well, Lori, now you're touching my sore spot. I'm not an artist, which you're never supposed to say, right? It's like any artist will tell you, everyone's an artist, you just have to wake it up. So, but there are lots of people who paint and draw their dreams, and their dream journals are as visual as anything. You know, they've
Yeah.
got the writing in there, but they've got the pictures and the drawings, and sometimes they color them, and it can be a very creative thing to because the dream is speaking in images and symbols. So if you're drawing the images and symbols, you're really speaking more the language of the dream. When
Yeah.
I try to draw my dreams in my journal, which I do, sometimes I have sort of say what it looks like. I haven't awakened that. My inner artist, she's really dormant. But lots of people do. It's a great
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
And I could see making like collages or doing photography,
Hmm.
putting objects in a symbolic relationship and taking photos. Like there's probably a lot that can be done, which would kind of be a cool class
Right. It
to
would. And
take. Like,
oh, we
every
do
week you do a
those
different
classes.
artistic modality or through movement or song, or writing affirmations. Like now I'm coming up with a course around.
There you go. Design that course.
Doesn't
Yeah.
that sound
Awesome.
fun?
Yeah, it does sound like fun. Yeah. And Jung and von Franz, one of the major Jungian writers and thinkers, they always said, do something in honor of your dream.
Mm,
You have a dream, the dream is a gift. Now you have to do something in honor of it. And if you're not doing something, you're not taking it seriously if you don't do something in honor of it. So
mm.
if it gives you a little ritual or a little thing to do it. There was one I was just hearing from a client this morning. I can't think, but it was just like it's a very simple thing to do, so just do it. Um, but as you're saying, a song or a body movement or a drawing or a collage or any of those things, if you do that in honor of your dream, you're really expanding the consciousness that's trying to awaken us from the dream. And knowing that the dream is sacred, all of the sacred scriptures of the world are based on dreams. If you look at the
Yes.
Bible, it's dreams all the way through.
Dreams and dream interpretation.
Exactly. Yes. It's so important. And it really moved, the whole movement of it. Joseph was told in a dream to take Mary as his wife, even though she was pregnant and all that. It's all the dreaming. Take them
Yeah.
to Egypt. That came in a dream. And the Quran all came to Muhammad in the dream. And Buddha's, like 5 dreams of Buddha's became the whole Buddhist sort of philosophy. So, all the myths and scriptures, dreams have been so important. How they got marginalized is a tragedy. Um, and I
Yeah,
think,
but they still stay alive for us. Uh,
yeah,
I remember reading something about the sleep habits of people like 150 years ago, and that they would wake up around 2, 3, 4 in the morning and kind of share dreams and have quiet time in the house and then go back to like their second sleep.
right.
If you are woken up in the middle of the night, oftentimes you will remember your dreams more because they're right there. You haven't gone into that amnesia of the longer sleep in the morning. And so it is an interesting idea of going to bed early, maybe with the sunset, and then waking up around the middle of the night and then going back to sleep for a bit. So yeah, there's almost like a luxury to it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I keep every single night, no matter where I am, even when I'm camping, I keep a little pad of paper next to my bed
Uh-huh.
with a pen. And so if I wake up, I can even with my eyes closed, just scrawl on there something,
Hmm.
that will help me pull back the dream in the morning, even if it's just a few words. Or if I get
Love
up to
it.
go to the restroom in the middle of the night, just write down a few things of where you just were and when you wake up in the morning, just kind of try to remember where you were instead of what you're going to do next when you put your
Yep.
feet. ground, but just give yourself a few moments in the waking to say, wait a minute, where was I just now? What was happening? And just call it back in.
Yeah, that's great. Great tips. So my mind is now drifting from the individual to the collective.
Yes.
And, there's so much that can be said about this, of the collective unconscious, the similarities, family members or lovers who have the same dream. My mom told me when she was young that she and her siblings woke up at the same time and like ran to their dad's room and they'd all had the same exact dream.
Oh my gosh, isn't that something?
All three of them, not the dad, but the three siblings had had the same dream. And so that was really cool. I didn't, that was neat. That was a spontaneous re-eruption of the power of community and dreaming that happened spontaneously for them. But I'm wondering about more like organized or purposeful dreaming. I know people sometimes wake up in their dream, lucid dreaming,
Yes.
where they become conscious and direct their
Uh-huh.
dreams. Other people have dream groups where they'll dream intentionally together,
Uh-huh.
and then cultivate the dreams afterwards. So, what is your perspective about all these collective ways of dreaming?
You know, I love that story of the three people in the family that all had the same dream the same night. And sometimes I think the purpose of that dream, no matter what it's talking about, is to tell us this dreaming is not personal. It's transpersonal. It's bigger than all of us.
Uh-huh.
That they're all sort of in that sort of collective dreaming mind. And just like we were saying in the Dream Symposium, you might have somebody in Norway and somebody in South Africa and somebody in Minnesota and somebody in Canada that all had the same dream in the same week. Now, how do we explain this? There's something in the global dreaming mind
Yeah.
that is activating things, and it shows up in each of our dreams in a little bit of a different symbology, but the theme is clearly there. So it's it's part of what awakens us to the fact that we all are one thing. We're
Hmm.
not separate. We think of ourselves as individuals, but we're all connected in our roots and in this consciousness that we share that is part of all of us. And I think the pathology started to happen when we began to think it's all part of the individuals, and then we don't know how to understand ourselves as part of a whole and how to work together with that, knowing that instead of me against you, it's us together. And
Yeah.
I think the dream is always helping us to get back to that reality, especially like understanding the collective nature of the dreaming, that we're all that it's a consciousness moving through us, that we're just the antennas, like the receivers, it's like the radio isn't the originator of the, information that comes out of the radio. It's just a receptor for the information. And that's who we are. We're just the radio or the receptor of the antenna of this consciousness that's moving through of us that we're all part of. And so I think the dreams are always kind of waking us up to that. And, often, when I hear my private clients, working with something that's an anxiety or something that's going on in their personal life, there's so much to be explored in why that anxiety is there. But often, if you look at the larger situation, what is the anxiety that your family is experiencing, or that your town is experiencing, or that your nation is experiencing?
Hmm.
And that anxiety itself then comes out in these personal ways. But if we make it more of a collective idea that there's something going on in the collective mind that we are experiencing, but it helps us to almost to not take it personally. It's like this is a collective
Yeah.
energy that we're all processing in our own particular ways. James Hillman, who's one of the great writers in archetypal psychology, he used to say, he was one of my professors.
Oh,
He said to us, um, "Don't take yourself so personally. It's not personal." And that, I think that's it's like this is collective, archetypal. It belongs to a bigger picture that we're all working ourselves through.
yeah.
Uh, so, yeah.
Thank you. Do you have any examples, maybe from yourself or clients or the Dream Symposium, of when the collective dreaming pointed you or others in a direction that was maybe unexpected or helpful?
Let me think. In the Dream Symposium, it's something different every time, it seems like. And like, okay, let me think of one. This young, beautiful woman from Canada has these amazing dreams, and I wish that I could remember. I should have maybe
That's
looked,
fine.
but I don't remember the language of it. But in the dream, she saw that there's the earth and there's the new earth, and that they're both here, they're both present, they're right now. And there's something about the vibrational field of the new earth that's being activated. But that's what I wish I had the words for, because it was beautiful how she described it, sort of the field in the new earth. But the idea is that we're not aware of it. It's here, it's already now. And that to me is a collective message, this sort of new earth, this new evolution of consciousness.
Hmm.
It's already here. It's not that it's some kind of distant future that we have to die to go to heaven to get there, or that we have to wait another 500 years before we'll evolve to get there, or whatever. It's here now. And we just need to awaken our consciousness, ourselves, our whole being to the frequencies of the new earth. But it's here and it's present. And her dream explained it just perfectly.
Wow.
And I felt like all of us were in this receiving this message that this is what we need to do, is just awaken to the fact that. And sometimes I think of like the Garden of Eden, we left it, and part of it is because we walked away from that consciousness. We started thinking of ourselves as individuals instead of a part of a collective. The Garden of Eden, whereas everything was, like awake, the plants and all of it were in harmony with each other. The Garden of Eden is still here too. We just left it. We can go back. It's right here. It's in our cells. It's available. It's not that we're these cast out people if we don't want to be. So, and I think the dreams are always leading us back into these bigger stories. Um, I love how the fairy tales, this is one of the things I loved about the fairy tales when I was a little girl, was that they all got to be raised. It's sort of interesting how that they have it. They got to be raised by the fairies and the gnomes and the elves in the forest, and that sort of vision quest was how they started their life, was, being away from the sort of collective consciousness into this nature consciousness, and
Yeah.
that was what immersed them. So they were ready then to meet, you know, join with the prince, which is the greater consciousness. It was the whole story is right there, but it's that embeddedness in the sort of Garden of Eden, yeah, sort of nature spirits. And I always thought I'd love to be raised by fairies. I love my parents. I have no complaints there, but I thought that was the part I loved the most.
You're making me remember that the first play I was in, I played one of the three fairies in Sleeping Beauty.
Which one were you?
It was an adaptation of the story,
Uh-huh.
almost a parody, and so we weren't really distinguished.
Oh,
It's
I
just the
see.
three of us with little wands. Yeah, I think there's still some of that fairy energy in me now. But
They're real at their own level, in the dreaming level. The imaginal world is real. So
yeah, yeah. Oh, I love what you're saying about going into the forest with the magical creatures or the interdimensional beings, and then you emerge because, all the fairy tales start off with some kind of trauma. And then there's an emergence after the magical encounter or the deep sleep or whatever it is, the invitation into the non-ordinary states. And then you emerge back owning more of yourself in a
mhm.
more empowered way. And then you're able to integrate with the ordinary world in a new way, whether it's through leadership or union or whatever it is. So, and that's throughout not just fairy tales, but Hollywood stories and, so many other things. You have to kind of break free from the spell.
There you go. And it's those spells in the dreams. And I feel like, the sort of collective mind now is this spell. It's like
Hmm.
this cult we've joined in a way. It's like you have to think like this. If you think outside the box, then like you were saying, I couldn't tell them about my dreams or my interests because and that's and I hear that all the time, people who are trying to, imagine their own future when they've got, their family and the culture around them that doesn't, know how to support them in that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a spell.
Yeah, and breaking the spell is so empowering. And maybe we're creating new spells. I don't know. Maybe these are layers within layers, but it has more a sense of agency. I interviewed, excuse me, Dr. Larry Burke, who's a radiologist, and he wrote a book about women who had dreamt about breast cancer and it saved their lives. So before they even knew, and sometimes they had to convince multiple, health professionals to really take their dream seriously, and it wound up saving their lives. So and he speaks about that amongst other things that he talks about in his professional life. But this was a really compelling way that dreams can kind of come and be warnings, but they can also open you up to new realities.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, one of my neighbors told me the story that she had a dream where her mother who was on the other side, came and touched her on her chest. And so she knew to go to the doctor. And sure enough, she had a breast cancer.
Wow.
But her mother came and touched her, like showed her that she had this breast cancer. So that came in the dream, and they caught it early, and she went through the treatment. But she might not have discovered it for some time except for that dream. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you this is a cute story. My grandson, who's 10 years old, he had an emergency appendectomy this last weekend. He was in the
Oh
hospital.
my.
Yeah. And, an appendectomy is not a serious problem. Thank God. It's like for if you're going to have emergency surgery, that's the one to have. But he was telling me just last night, he said, you know, I had a dream, and he said it wasn't actually a dream asleep. It was like when you go into that dark place in the mind. And I knew, he said, just a couple weeks ago, I went into this place where I knew there was going to be an injury and that I would have to miss school for several days.
Wow.
He got this like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And that's what I'm talking about is the dreaming mind.
Yeah.
That's that sort of place where we have these premonitory pieces of information. But he's 10 years old. And he was telling me, I already knew this was going to happen. It's like my psyche prepared me for this,
Yeah.
use those words, but I knew it was going to happen. Isn't that so interesting? And this is, when you get into the dreaming, it's awake and asleep. You're in that in between realm where all the information is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. I'm glad that he's okay. And that
Thank
he,
you. Yeah,
yeah,
he is. And he's been through an adventure now. He stayed in a hospital overnight. He's got stories to tell, so.
that first decade, he's already ticked off a box about what life can offer in terms of, problems, but also the healing aspects and how beautiful that he can share with you and that he can feel safe and you can have that connection. That's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm in his life because he's very intuitive that way. His parents, really aren't in a certain way.
Hmm.
So I'm glad he can always tell me these things.
That's great.
And
I'm glad
sometimes
that,
he tells me those things in front of his parents who kind of don't think that way.
yeah,
They're very open and sweet about it, but it's not their, but he'll tell me in front of them, and then they will respect, because we have a conversation about it. They're starting to, like say, oh, yeah, wow, this kid.
that's great. You're helping legitimize it.
Yeah. He told me not too long ago that they were camping, and he said,
Mhm.
Nana, I saw the green man.
Oh,
And I was looking at a bush, and all of a sudden, there he was. His eyes were looking right at me. He had a beard. He described the green man the way, and he said, and then he just went back into being the bush.
wow.
But, I love that he could tell me that he knew that he saw that it was real. And he wasn't imagining it. And I love that he could tell me that. And his mom was there and she was like, whoa, okay, wow.
Yeah, and you're not saying like, oh, there's something wrong or you're imagining it or
Yeah, like you don't poo-poo those things. You
yeah,
really try to support, this inner wisdom and this inner knowing.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time, and I do have one more thing I'd like to ask you about before we kind of wrap up. And
Okay.
that is about, you hinted about it, visitations from the other side. So
Uh-huh.
you mentioned the mother, deceased mother coming and touching the chest, and then the daughter wound up discovering she had breast cancer. I've had some experiences, I won't call them dreams, of being visited after people have been departed. And one of the ways that for me it distinguishes from a dream is that usually in the space and the imagery is in a separate location. Like if there's a party going on, I'm called into a different room
Hmm.
where I meet alone with the person. So I still have access to the other parts of consciousness, but it's sequestered.
Hmm.
It's fully sequential.
Hmm.
There's no disruption in the continuity. It's not like you're on the chalkboard and you're in space and then you're a pickle. It's like it's a normal, quote unquote, normal conversation. There's deep physical sensation of the sensory, like smell, touch, taste, hearing. It's palpable. And there is always some kind of a reassuring message. And usually I'm aware of the fact that they've passed, but sometimes I'm not. It's as if I hadn't seen them in a long time, and it's a very casual encounter, as if you were just running across a friend that you knew was maybe going to show up in a week or two, and you're like, oh, hey, how you doing? So I offer that as a jumping off point for you to kind of reflect on these visitations that can happen.
Well, I love that you have those dreams, and I feel like it's so important. Many will say that the dead are bereft because we've forgotten that they're still alive.
Oh,
Uh, and, a lot of, people who are aware of, the dying process will say it's just like entering the next room. It's just going from this room to the other room. Uh,
mhm.
it's not that there's an ending there. And so, I was listening to Federico Faggin, Faggin. He's a physicist, and he was saying, I love this guy if you ever want to listen to his podcasts or interviews. Um, but as a physicist, he was saying there's no such thing as death. He said, if I exist, I exist. I've always existed. That's how it is. And he's saying this in terms of his scientific understanding. There's
Mhm.
no such thing as death. We have a wrong concept of death. And that's the thing the indigenous people absolutely knew and understood, that you help people into the next uh, their next life, but they're still there and they're still with us and they're part of the conversation and they're still communicating. And in the dreaming, that's how they show up for us. And so if somebody that you have known or you sense, I love that what you said about stepping into another room. And that's
Mhm.
kind of what they say, it's stepping into the other room. And there they are. It's just on the other side of this veil, that we're in. Um, and so, and they'll say that they want to help us, but they won't intrude. So we got to ask them.
Yeah.
So if you have an aunt who was really good at sewing or something, ask her, what to do about this thing you're working on.
Yes.
It's like employ them. They want to come. They want to be part of our things. And so, it's interesting, even I'll say this. When I was living out on the mountain where I did the retreats and so forth, one night I just sat up in bed. My father, who was on the other side, I said, Dad, you got to help me figure out how to make a living. I've
Oh.
just gotta figure this out. And Dad was good at those things, and I needed his support. And it was like I almost shot up in bed and just said this prayer to my dad. Well, lo and behold, this is an interesting story. One of my old boyfriends, first boy I ever kissed at age 14, was divorced and tracked me down. And he came and he wanted to get back together and do a thing. And so he visited a few times. It was not going to be something that I wanted, but he said, when I was driving here, I felt your father over my shoulder the whole time. And I thought, oh, when I said to my father, I need help making a living, he sent me a man. That's what Dad would do. That's not what I meant, but he was trying to do what he would know to do. And that, that those kind of things let you know when they're on the other side, they're all of a sudden illuminated. They're still themselves. They're still on their evolutionary journey. And that's just what Dad would do. I'll send you a man, he'll take care of you. It's like, no, Dad, thank you anyway, but no.
And here I was hoping that maybe this old boyfriend had like a business idea for you.
Yeah, that would have been nice. No, he just wanted to sort of take over my life
Okay.
in a sweet way. He wanted to take care of me. That's what Dad wanted it, but that's not what I wanted.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
So
great.
yeah, so those things will happen, but just, talk to your loved ones, who departed loved ones,
Mhm.
talk to them and know that they feel abandoned when we forget them. It's like we don't need to do that, forget them. Uh,
Yeah. And
so
there's religions, right now we're coming in, so we're recording this almost at Halloween. Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead,
right.
which is really an
Yeah.
ancestral honoring time. In different religions, there are pilgrimage times and memorial times, lighting a candle, putting out pictures, offerings of what the ancestors enjoyed in different religions, the fruits that they liked, or even alcohol, cigarettes,
Right, exactly. Their favorite, whatever.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Stuffed animals. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And keeping it alive. So, but not everyone has those cultural ties. And so, I love that you had a bridge to the dream world through the ancestral teachings.
Uh-huh.
And what I have been encouraged to do by some of my teachers is to make sure that I'm really looking at the gems from my own personal ancestral lineage. And a lot of people maybe don't know. The stories have been lost, or in the family line, or they've never actually looked.
Uh-huh.
But, in places that we think of as being, oh, there's no ancestral roots, that's not true. It's there.
Uh-huh.
And you can, even if you can't find it online or by talking to people, you can ask for clarifying dreams.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, all of those other resources can be very helpful, but we've got that connection. Just like we're connected to the Garden of Eden, we're connected to all this information.
Yeah.
The Library of Alexandria is still alive inside of us. They burned it down here, but it's still available.
Yeah.
So all of that information is available to us if we really just awaken ourselves to it. And it's time now. It's time to wake up, to wake
Oh,
up.
I love it. It's time to wake up. Maybe that will be the title of this podcast.
Okay, all right. It's time to wake up to the dreaming. It's like, and many will say that the dreaming world is the real world. This one is where we're asleep. We're kind of
Yeah.
sleepwalking in this world, which feels real to me. Real feels true to me. And then we go into the dreaming. That's where the real world is
Yeah.
the more
That, yeah, I
true
think
world, the depth world. Yeah,
the movie The Matrix spoke to a lot of people in that way, in the way that I think that The Wizard of Oz did for other generations.
absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really an impactful movie, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
this has been so much fun.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, Lori. It's just really fun to talk to you. I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share before we say goodbye for today?
I brought this quote, which is one of my favorite quotes
Okay.
by a man named Anthony Stevens in his little book called The 2 Million Year Old Self. And I'll just say that comes from The 2 Million Year Old Self. Jung said, Before you go to sleep at night, think on your problem, whatever it is, at whatever level your problem is, and ask your 2 million-year-old self to speak in your dream and see what comes.
Wow.
But he said this, and this sort of defines my, sort of passion about dreams. He said, we should regard dreams as an endangered species,
Hmm.
a casualty of technological advance. Dreams are an oasis of spiritual vitality. They represent our primordial habitat, our last wilderness, and we must protect them with as much fervor as the rainforests, the ozone layer, the elephant, and the whale. And so I feel like that's my life's work, is to protect the dream, like many are protect the whale or the ozone layer, which I do all those things too. But, it's like protect the dreams. This wisdom has been with us from ancient, ancient times. We've always known about it. And there's something about this technological mind that's taken over the rational mind that excluded it. So let's protect it, and enliven it, awaken in the dream. Yeah,
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Thank you for that inspiration
you're
and for
so.
that wonderful quote and for all the work that you're doing to keep the dreams alive.
It's my passion. I enjoy it immensely. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. It's been a delight.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. If you want to learn more, you can visit my website for podcast and resources at hopshealingtips.com. You can also like, share, and subscribe to this channel. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only and is not providing healthcare advice. Please seek guidance from your professional healthcare team should you need assistance.